Welcome to cooking. Today we are actually making a dry bean soup in a jar. Very exciting because this is so flexible, so versatile. You can make it however you want, and these make great gifts. So gather all your jars, your leftover jars, just clean off all the labels, and then you can start making Christmas gifts today or birthday gifts for the year to come. So we are doing a lentil and pot barley or pearl barley soup today. So let's get started. The goal with this is that you keep it in a jar and you put it on your shelf for a day that you don't feel like cooking. It's got a lot of the basics that you need, and then you'll be able to have it, dump it in and cook it in 20 minutes and it's good to go. So the goal with this is that everything that you put in is dry. You can't have anything in there with moisture. So even our sun-dried tomatoes today, we're gonna have to really watch those over the time because there is a little bit of moisture in there. So if they go moldy, you have to throw out the whole thing. So with this, we're actually gonna use this within the week. So we're just making it, we're gonna store it in the fridge. So you can use, if you can find dry tomatoes or just add them in after. You can add whatever vegetables later on when you dump this into the pot. You can increase your vegetables because we only have the herbs in here because vegetables don't come dry. But this is your basics. It's nice to be able to keep it all together in a jar, and it's going to look pretty. All right, so I did wash, but we don't have anything else to wash, so we're just going to get right into it today. We're going to use lentils as our bean for the protein, and the reason for that is because both the barley and the lentils cook around the same time, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then they're both done. You don't want to use a bean like, say, a chickpea or a black bean that's going to take a lot longer to cook because those are bigger. You have to soak them overnight or you have to double boil them. And so that wouldn't make a good soup because if you boiled that for 20 minutes, half an hour, it's still going to be crunchy. So we're going to use that today and then add our spices in. So you can use a funnel or just a piece of paper and then just pour everything in this way. So that's what we're going to do today. So all you have to do is just take your paper, I've got a little piece of tape, and just tape it together, and then we'll just stick it into our jar so that when we're pouring our ingredients in, I didn't make it small enough, when we're pouring our ingredients in, then they don't get all over the counter. So there is our funnel in our jar. Everybody has a homemade funnel, if it stays. Okay, so first up, actually we're gonna use this open bag of lentils. So lentils are a beautiful protein, as you know, Rebecca's favorite bean because they boil up just like rice. And rice and beans together is a complete protein, has all those 9 essential amino acids that our body can't make. So it is a wonderful addition, high in fiber, high in protein. And remember, any dry bean is going to either double or triple in size when you go to cook it. So we've got about a half a cup of lentils here. There you go. So I've seen jars before where they kind of put it on the side like that. So we'll try to do that just to make it a little bit fancier. We're going to use this barley. So there's 2 kinds of barley that you'll find at the grocery store. This is called pot barley and the other one is pearl barley. Pearl barley is like white rice. Pot barley is like brown rice. You want the pot because you want the fiber. Oh, I have some lentils left over in there. So Marianne said a good way to remember it was pot barley goes in soup, goes into the pot of soup. So there's our half a cup. So we're going to turn this on an angle, see if this will happen. I don't know. Now they're kind of the same color, so it's not gonna be too visual, but there you go. You can see a little directional there. on an angle. That's just for being fancy. So then you can add whatever spices you want. If this is going to turn into like a vegetable soup, so you're going to add, when you go to cook it, maybe you're going to add frozen carrots, maybe celery and onion mix. Then you can add like the Italians. If you want to do it more Mexican, maybe you're going to add peppers and onions and chili powder. Then you would do like cumin, chili powder, garlic. So change up those herbs, whatever you think that you want to do later on. So we're going to add some sun-dried tomatoes to this. And it's a half of a cup. I'm not sure these things. And Marianne said that these were only $2.99. Wow, $2.99, which is really cool. If you want to get ones that stay in the fridge, you can get them packed in oil, and then they have even more flavor, so they stay in the jar in the fridge, and then you can chop them up and add them to things, because we don't really get great tasting tomatoes in the winter. So we will plunk those in. And remember, we're gonna have to keep an eye on those because those aren't fully dry. Dried vegetables, when you dehydrate them in the oven, they take about 80% of the moisture out. All right, after that, we're gonna add some onions. So some chopped onions. Now make sure, and this goes the same for garlic as well, that you don't get onion salt. So onion salt would be a granular powder like this, but these are onion flakes or chopped onions, so it's just the onion chopped. You don't want to get something that has the extra salt in it, because usually they have even more hidden ingredients in there. So we're gonna add 2 tablespoons. That's a teaspoon, however. There's my tablespoon. 2 tablespoons of chopped onion. And this is just dehydrated onion. It says to rehydrate, add a half a cup of hot tap water, doesn't even have to be boiling, to a 1/4 cup of the dehydrated onions, and then just stir it, let it sit for a few minutes, and it's rehydrated. So that's a pretty neat way to do onions, although we do have onions all year long at a very decent price. All right, so we've got our onions, garlic powder. So this is a teaspoon. However, if you really like garlic, feel free to add more, but a whole teaspoon of garlic is actually quite a bit as well. We'll add that in. 2 tablespoons of dried basil. I might use my funnel for this one just so that it doesn't go all over. There we go. Another tablespoon. Perfect. And then a tablespoon of dried oregano. So these are very common spices. These are the Italian spices. So if you get some of these ones, you'll be able to add a lot more flavor to any of your tomato sauce dishes as well. Marianne says, well, what if you don't have these? Can you substitute Italian seasoning? And you totally could. Italian seasoning is probably going to have even a few more. So if this called for 3 tablespoons total for this, just add 3 tablespoons of your Italian seasoning. Great idea. And then parsley. We've got a tablespoon of the parsley. Now, if you're thinking that these herbs are ones you really like and you use a lot, why not grow your own next summer? And then you can just snip off the branches, dry them, which it just means you hang them by the string, not in sunlight, but in a place that they will dry fully. And then you can just powder them up. I like to use a coffee grinder, just throw the leaves in there and powder them up, and then you have your own herbs. Fresh parsley. So this is fresh. So all they do is they take a string, they get quite a few bunches, put it together like this, and then just let it sit for 3 or 4 weeks, or hang. And then at the 3 or 4 week mark, you have to put like a container underneath, because as soon as you touch it, all the leaves are going to fall off. And then you just stick it in a little grinder, grind it up, and you can refill your own containers with your own herbs. Thank you, ma'am. And then we have a tablespoon of vegetable bouillon or beef bouillon or chicken, whatever you'd like. we did have one of these on hand, but so this is what they call a bouillon mix, but it is a pressed bouillon cube, but it's soft. And that just means there's a lot more moisture in there. So I wouldn't recommend using them in a jar like this, because that moisture is where the mold and the bacteria might grow. So we don't want to do that. So you just get some sort of a dry herb powder and add it right to the top. And there you go. So this ingredient, or this recipe, says that when you go to use your very beautiful soup mix, throw it into a pot, add 6 cups of water to this, add a couple of sticks of celery, a couple of carrots, and a can of diced tomatoes, bring to a boil. Cook for 20 minutes and you're good to go. So that's very exciting. You've got the base all made. So what would this look like if you did 6 of these? Maybe you wanted to use up, you buy this because it's on sale, this big bag of lentils. I think there's about maybe 8 servings, 8.5 cups or 9, maybe 10 in there. Maybe you had 10 jars fully dry that you want to make 10 soups. And that means that probably if you made 10 soups and each would be about 4 servings, you have 40 suppers already made up if you made all 10 of these in a row. So I would encourage you to find a couple of dry soup mixes in a jar that you think you will like and make them up. They do also make really, really good gifts. You tie a little bow around it. You put a little, you can put some cloth around the top and tie it with a little string and then just attach a little card to it. People love it. It looks great. They have to be reminded to use it because it sits on the shelf and it just looks so pretty. So a recommendation is to use these up within the year. Especially with the sun-dried tomatoes, I would probably use that within the week. But since this recipe called for tomatoes later on, I would maybe leave those out if you're just going to leave them on the shelf for a little bit, a few months. And then you can just use that whenever you want within the year. The goal about the year is that beans actually start to get more dry over time, and you don't want to have to boil and boil and boil your soup just because the beans are too old. So use them up within a year. But there you have it. We have a dry bean and barley soup mix in a jar.